Namaste everyone and welcome to mad-Bhagavadgi. Today we are very lucky that today's class and Gita Jayanthi have coincided, and I'm personally quite kicked by that coincidence because I'm thrown back to 5,160 years ago, and I keep wondering what might have run in the minds of all those people who are on both sides of the battlefield. We must recognize one thing, that was the Copper Age. So there were no steel weapons, they were all using copper weapons. Now, copper, you cannot sharpen it too much, it will not become very sharp. Number one. Number two, it is important to recognize that the amount of copper that was probably available was not very high. So that is why, if you will notice, in that period there were only two or three major weapons that were used. The first one was the Gada. Gada means what? Gada, if you will really see, is not what you really see in TV. It was just basically either a block of wood, steel, of metal or stone tied to a stick. It was a heavy melee weapon. The second thing that you will notice is that you will see that they prized wrestlers. Why? Because wrestling was the closest you could come to actual combat. The third thing obviously was the stick weapons, stick with some metal tip. And lastly, the archery. What was that archery that they had? Why was it considered to be, all these guys became very big archers? Why? Because there were two types, there was only one kind of bow. Now, what a bow is basically dependent on the string, on the draw, on the level of tautness that you can get out of a string. And the bowstring that they used was basically sinew. They used it out of muscles of animals that they slaughtered for food, and the leather that they were able to get. The armor that they had was wood with leather and metal. And the best part is, did they have a cavalry? The answer is no. They did not have cavalry because if you look at the domestication of the horse was domesticated only in 7000 BC. This war happened sometime in 3100 BC. Second thing is, to control the horse, you need to put a bit. The bit was not invented until 500 AD, 500 BC. Lastly, you need to have a saddle. You need to have a saddle and a stirrup. A stirrup is where you can keep your feet. That too was not invented until 500 BCE. That means the entire business of charioting was the most advanced form of weaponry, of mobile weaponry that they had. Second thing is, in order to increase the tautness of the bow, you needed to have different types of wood to be placed as bows. That means a compound bow. Compound bow means what? You might have one type of wood, then you will have another type of wood and a third type of wood. All of this would be tied with sinew or leather. That would result in a bow which had differing tensile strength. And that tensile strength, when you pulled it, would give you the distance. So the interesting thing is, all this was the constraints with which those people fought at Kurukshetra. So what you see actually in those TV serials are not reality. The horses were half broken. They were not completely under control because the bit was not there. They did not have a bit. They had to be controlled using the some other means which we don't understand completely right now. So the horse, the charioteer, the person who drove the horse was definitely a very important person because he needed to understand how to control horses. On top of that, you had the archer at the back. So this, when I reflect upon it, becomes a very critical. It becomes very fascinating for me. The setting in which this particular battle would have happened. There would have been horses, there would have been elephants, and there would have been men at arms. All of them would have been uh, given primitive weapons, primitive armor, which would have been wood with leather. And that would have been mostly melee combat, each person trying to hit the other person with a very basic, elementary, crude tool of war. So in this, you have Arjuna, who is seeing this vast array. Almost every person of the Chandravanshis was involved in it, and Chandravanshis go back to the families of Yayati. That is, you have Yayati had two wives, one wife and one okay, I don't know what to call Sarmishta. Um, uh, the thing is that so first was Yadu. From Yadu was given southwest, which is based in Ujjain, that is Mahishmati, and his descendants are called Yadavas. And today you have Yadavs, those with surname Yadavs, in living either in Dwaraka or up north near Mathura and other areas, which was close to Hastinapura of that time. Then you have the guru of the Yadavas were called Bhrigus. Bhrigus of today are those that have either Bhargava Gotra or their surnames are Bhargav. Similarly, you have Druhyus, Anus, who are now subsumed into Pakistan. And then you have the Purus or Pauravas. So all of these people in the Punjab, Sindh, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh area and parts of Bihar came together, sent all of them to fight, resulted in a huge cataclysmic destruction of civilization in Bharat. So it's a very fascinating aspect of our civilization. And today, Sri Krishna teaches or explains life to Arjuna. So we will start this Bhagavad Gita class with a recitation. We'll start with Lalita madam and then go to Jayashree madam. Lalita madam.
Yes, sir. Since today is the first time, I thought of this one small bhajan.
Yes, ma'am.
Sagare maga pari sa sa kama gare maga प्रथम वंदु विनायका प्रथम वंदु विनायका प्रथम वंदु विनायका मूळारंभी नमित तुझला मूळारंभी नमित तुझला प्रथमवन्दे विनायका प्रथमवन्दे विनायका जय भवानि नमोऽस्तु ते जय भवानि नमोऽस्तु ते श्रीनिवासा सुब्रह्मण्या श्रीनिवासा सुब्रह्मण्या गौरी शङ्कर तू मापति गौरी शङ्कर तू मापति स्तवित तुझला शङ्करा स्तवित तुझला शङ्करा गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरा पतित पावन रामचन्द्रा पतित पावन रामचन्द्र सिया रामचन्द्र सिया रामचन्द्र श्री कृष्ण हे योगेश्वरा श्री कृष्ण हे योगेश्वरा श्री योगेश्वरा हे योगेश्वरा हे योगेश्वरा हे योगेश्वरा हे योगेश्वरा श्री योगेश्वरा
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Very well presented, ma'am. Thank you very much. And the interesting thing is today is Vaikuntha Ekadashi also. So you covered
Yes.
everybody, the whole spectrum. Thank you very much. Jai Shri Madam.
Yes.
धृतराष्ट्र उवाच धर्मक्षेत्रे कुरुक्षेत्रे समवेतायुयुत्सवः मामका पाण्डवाश्चैव किमकुर्वत सञ्जय सञ्जय उवाच दृष्ट्वा तु पाण्डवानेकम् व्यूढं दुर्योधनस्तदा आचार्यमुपसङ्गम्य राजावचनमं पश्यैतां पाण्डुपुत्राणामाचार्यमहतीं च मूं व्यूढां द्रुपदपुत्रेण तव शिष्येन धीमता सञ्जय उवाच एवमुक्त्वार्जुनः सङ्ख्ये रथोपस्थ उपाविशत् विसृज्य सशरं चापं शोकसंविघ्नमानसः श्रीभगवानुवाच अशोच्यानन्वशोचस्त्वं प्रज्ञावादांश्च भाषसे गतासो न गतासूंश्च नानुशोचन्ति पण्डिताः
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, now I'm going to throw a bouncer at you, Jai Shri Madam. The one that you said last in second chapter. Which verse is that?
11th one.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you to explain it.
I can look at what.
You
It's
grieve
about...
for those that should not be grieved. The wise do not grieve for the living, dead and the living.
Yes.
So I want you to just explain whatever you can. Because I think at the end of the day, there's no point in discussing Srimad Bhagavad Gita if you don't internalize it. You won't internalize it if I don't put you into the fire. Correct? Only the fire transforms. So whatever it comes to your head, it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. It is an opinion. So I want you to just tell me.
How I have understood is as um, joy and grief, like how there's black and white, and then there is uh, dawn and dusk. So joy and grief are part of samsara. You can't separate the two.
Correct.
They're part of it.
Correct. So there's another thing that here which you might want to get your attention to. The wise do not grieve for the dead and the living. You grieve for those that should not be grieved. That is, everything is temporary. There's no point in you, there's no need for you to actually feel that attachment that you have is actually unnecessary, because everything is temporary. You grieve for something that need not be grieved. There is no need for you to, the whole business of living and dying is all temporary. That, in my view, is also an important part. Okay, here I'm going to throw a bouncer to the whole group. I think this is a very, I like this particular concept. I want somebody to volunteer to chant one shloka from chapter 2 for the next week, and also to give their own interpretation of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, because otherwise we will not internalize. So somebody please volunteer, and not Ram Mohan sir, somebody else. Hello, come on. It's not that serious. Otherwise, I will assign somebody to chant a shloka and give a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Nobody? Okay, Lakshmi madam, you are the one on the mat.
Ayo, sir, I don't know anything, sir, chanting. I have never done
So try it.
Bhagavad
No,
Gita.
what is that?
Yes.
Nobody
Okay, sir.
will judge you. We have to do it.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, sir. I will do.
So
What should I
you've
do,
got,
sir?
you
What should
choose,
I chant?
you read chapter 2 once.
Okay, sir.
And then what you do is, you say, I like
Yes.
this particular verse. Read
Yes.
the verse 2-3 times so that you become
Yes.
familiar with the words. Say
Okay.
it aloud in the house when nobody is there. Or if you
Yes,
want to
sir.
hear, you can go to YouTube and hear that particular verse. Practice
Okay,
2-3
sir.
times. Don't do too much
Okay.
overwork. Little bit here, there
Okay.
is okay, fine, no problem. But what is more
Yes, sir.
important is, think
Yes.
for yourself, what
Yes.
does this verse mean to me? That is you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So
sir. I will do it, sir.
I think what will happen is that then we will begin to internalize Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Don't you think so?
Definitely, sir. Definitely.
Okay.
Only that when you say internalize your personal experience and all those words, when you tell no, sir, I get this doubt. I need validation that what I'm thinking is right. No, sir. No, everybody
Correct.
like that. Like everyone has their own experience and interpretation of
Yes.
the Gita or anything. So I am one person who is not very confident about whether my I'm not talking about chapter 2 per se, sir, but generally anything spiritual. I get a concern, sir. Am I right in thinking like this?
Absolutely. What do you think happens to me when I'm telling you something? I
Uh,
might sound very confident, but inside I am also quaking, because I don't know if you all agree with
uh,
what I'm saying. No, because a lot of the time there is silence on the other side. I'm not able to see your eyes. I'm not able to see your faces. So what happens to me? I'm continuously talking to a screen. It's not
yes, sir.
easy. I'm also I don't worry. Even I have the
Yes, sir.
same problem.
Yes, sir.
Every time I might sound very confident, but at the end of the day, even I need validation, which is why I keep telling you, tell me whether you agree with what I'm saying. Why? For two
Yes, sir.
reasons. One is I need to know whether you have understood. Second is you need to validate me also, no? So
Sir.
it's not just you, everybody has this problem.
Okay, sir.
That is why we call it asmita, the sense of self-worth. Our
Yes, sir.
self-worth is very, very fragile.
Mm.
Until somebody says, that's why you call it positive stroking. You remember, if you give your child positive stroking, the child responds better. Why? Because it feels,
Mm.
Arey, I am good.
I am good. Correct.
So the thing is that that's why the value of positive stroking is so important. You have to
Yes, sir.
stroke others. This is something that we must do continuously to others. So the thing is that you are not alone, madam.
Yes, sir.
So take one, read the whole chapter once, take one
Yes.
and see whether, say how you want to interpret it, whichever your own
Yes.
way of interpretation, and then we can discuss it.
Okay. Yes, sir. I will do
Okay.
it, sir.
And
Yes, sir.
and next week I would request somebody to volunteer, because see this time I kind of threw Lakshmi madam into the bus, under the bus, but I don't want to do it. Somebody must volunteer next week. Okay. Now I'm going to go into sthithaprajna. So let's split the word sthithaprajna. Sthita means steady. Okay. Prajna means awareness. So what is steady awareness? Steady awareness, let me first read what uh, this is between verses 64 to 72. So what are the qualities of sthithaprajna? First, such a person is able to cast off all desires, even those in the form of ideas, and become completely secure and satisfied in the Brahman and Brahman alone. Now, this goes back into what Lakshmi Madam was talking about. That is, why are we so fragile? Why do we need affirmation all the time? That is, in effect, a problem for us to be completely um, um, independent. So let's look at now the word independence. Independent is, the word is swatantra. Swa is self, tantra is weave. Now, what is this weave? Weave of what? Tantra is the weave of the identity with the manifestation. For example, I am Vishwanath. How do you know I am Vishwanath? Because of the way I manifest. That is my behavior. But my behavior comes out of my identity. Correct? So Vishwanath behaves and you recognize that, and because of that, you say this is Vishwanath. That means Vishwanath cannot exist without his behavior, but the behavior cannot happen without the identity being there. So the two have to weave with each other. The identity is called Shiva and the behavior is called Shakti, which is why Adi Shankara says Shiva Shaktya Yukto Yati Bhavati Shakta Prabhavitam. That is, without Shakti there is no Shiva, without Shiva there is no Shakti. So the point is that Swatantra means where I am able to present a front which is cohesive. The weave of my identity with my manifestation is is um, is something that is in my I'm aware of. Why is that awareness important? Because when my identity is weak, I go inside. When I move inside, that is called tamas. When I'm completely comfortable and I'm moving outside, it is called rajas. And when I have a balance, that is called sattva. I have given this example before. Suppose you are going on the street and you meet somebody and you say hi, and that other person doesn't respond to you or responds negatively, you shrink, you go inward. That is called tamas. If the other person says, hi, how are you? And then you start talking, there's a lot of energy that is exchanged, that is called rajas. And then when you're, if you're unaffected, that is called sattva. The same example Lakshmi Madam was talking about, I feel hesitant or insecure when I'm displaying my thoughts. That is tamas. When she goes out and she talks about it, or I talk about anything, that is rajas. And when we are in equilibrium, that is called sattva. Now coming back to sthithaprajñā. When you need that, so we all need that kind of affirmation for us to be independent. But we now need to get to a state where we are independent of that stroking. If we have to get independent of that stroking, it means that our identity needs to be secure within itself. So what does that mean? Now we have already spoken about two things. Our movement outside and our movement inside. Our movement outside, from inside to outside, is what we call vijnana, our ability to relate to the external environment. That which comes to us as stimulus is decoded by us as part of our self-worth. This gives us an indication of who we are and what we are. That is called jnana. So we've got external going, that is vijnana, internal coming, and internally us being assimilating and becoming at peace with ourselves, which is jnana. And both of these are subsets of what we call prajna or awareness. Now, when you, this is, so if you will see, ultimately that vijnana part will get merged with the Vijnanamaya Kosha in Yoga Vidya class. So everything ultimately comes to the same point. Okay, one is the implementation of the practice. Now what we are talking about is the concept of the theory. So sthithaprajñā, sthita is steady, prajña is awareness. So here we have our identity, which goes into tamas, rajas or sattva, and our awareness, which is observing this movement of outside and inward. This whole concept, this integrated part is called sthithaprajñā. And when you are no longer dependent on external validation, you become more and more sthithaprajñā. Am I getting through? Have you all been able to understand? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So that is why, to get to that point, such a person is able to cast off all desires. Desire means what? Expectation. I want. Okay. Even in the form of ideas. That means we are able to accept what comes our way and become completely secure and satisfied in the Brahman. That is a little difficult, I accept. But the process is what we are doing in the classes now. Second, such a person acts without bias and is not afraid of any outcome. This is very difficult because we are all geared to being comfortable when we know where we are going. Have you all noticed? You are most comfortable when you are in a seat where you can observe the road when it is where it is going. You will never overtake without knowing what is there. That's stupidity. But even if you are doing backseat driving, you will want to see the road before you go and poke the driver. Don't go fast, don't go slow, kind of stuff. We are always interested in looking at the direction of travel. So that means we don't take life on trust. We always want to know what is going to happen, which is why people are afraid of death. Have you noticed many children will not go to sleep very easily because they don't want fear of missing out. But fear of missing out also comes with the problem of sleep. If I sleep, what happens? There is also the reason for insomnia. Fear of not being able to control what happens in sleep. So the thing is that everything that we do, we want to know where we are going. our inability to accept it, it becomes a big problem. The third, this person is unattached and without affection everywhere. That means there is no bias. That is also very difficult. We have our favorite mug, we have the favorite position in the car, we have a favorite position in the house. We will sit in the front room in a particular place, and if somebody takes that place, we get upset. We sleep on a particular side of the bed. If we can't get that side, we get upset, we don't sleep properly. Then this person is able to withdraw his senses from all objects and keep his awareness steady. That is Manomaya Kosha. The ability to control where the senses come and the ability to integrate it and be steady in the awareness of the self. So, I'm going to ask whether this was easy to understand and whether you have any questions.
Very clearly put. Thank you.
You are able to understand? Okay.
Yes, very, very well.
Yes.
Okay. Now, how does a person become a sthithaprajna? First, by thinking of all objects, and attachment is developed with them. So, essentially, your favorite seat comes from a position of insecurity as well as a position of affection. Okay. Then, from attachment comes the desire for ownership and control. This the biggest attachment that comes from of children. We think it belongs to us. Ownership and control. Because of that, we control the child. No, you should. Up to a point, yes, the safety and the security part, you must be careful. But we tend to control a little more than we need to. We don't recognize that the child by itself is an individual. Often we get into positions where we have difficulty in trying to understand where control stops and where control must exist. Isn't it? It's a very, all these are real life things. That is why Srimad Bhagavad Gita is a manual of life. If we reflect, we realize that 90% of what we do, we don't need to do. That is the interesting thing. We do so much that is extraneous to the need to exist. And because we do that, we become attached to everything that we do. Then the outcome becomes important for us. One of the things that we have in our system is Sarvam Krishnarpanamastu. That is either Sarvam Brahman, Sarvam Brahman also you can Arpanam. You can do Arpanam. But the point is that when we cook, for example, you put something on the plate. Is it good? This is the first question we ask. Just as I say, is my class okay? Why? Because we want feedback. We want that other person to like it. But if you will notice in our system, you are supposed to first offer it as Naivedya. So what you are supposed to do is you are supposed to Pranaya Swaha, Apanaya Swaha, Dhyanaya Swaha, Udanaya Samanaya Swaha. That is, let this offering be good for the prana, that is the incoming energy. Apanaya Swaha, let it be good for the excretory energy. Dhyanaya Swaha, let it be that the entire aura of the person be in good condition. Udanaya Swaha, let all communication be positive. And Samanaya Swaha, let the circulatory forces, the blood circulation as well as the digestive circulation, let them be at peace. So when you do the Naivedya and then give it as prasada, it is no longer yours. So it is the other person is eating something that is a prasada. When person is eating a prasada, there is no question of like and dislike in this because it is already offered to something, to another entity. So have you isn't that a very interesting way in which our ancients have designed the system in such a way that you cook something, offer it as naivedya, and then give it as prasada. So what happens is it is no longer yours. It is a prasadam given to somebody. So the question of like dislike is not there. So everything that we do in our system is designed to separate us from the outcome of that action. So what happens when we do that is that we actually begin to look at the whole thing as a prasadam given to somebody, and that is given then with great affection. Why? The karuna has to be there in the food. The karuna has to be there in the serving. So the other person feels comfortable when the person is eating. But the attachment to the outcome is not there. So, following desire comes anger and frustration when things don't go right. That's so straightforward. You have told the child to study hard. The child doesn't get a good mark. Because you have already invested, you want an outcome. When the outcome is not there, there is frustration and anger. Frustration and anger cloud reason. That's also very straightforward. And from delusion causes turbulence of cognition. So what happens is the buddhi, mind, intellect begin to get into turbulence. And this results in clouding of data information. So you don't get to see everything in the way you should be seeing. If you recall, then you are like a glass bowl filled with water, and then you put some amount of clay in it. If the clay is down, then there is clarity of vision. When that begins to get churned, then automatically all the kachada starts coming up. And when the kachada comes up, you are unable to see on the other side. And that is like what you are inside yourself. Which is why you need to practice pranayama and dhyana and other things, so that that entire kachada that is there inside, the turbulence of asmita, I am this and I am the doer, begins to settle down. Okay. Then lastly, from confusion of memory comes loss of memory, harmony, as well as conditioning and reason. That is pretty straightforward. We stop thinking and then we do everything and then we feel sorry about it afterwards. Why? Because that attachment is there. So what Sri Krishna is talking about is how harmony or dharma or natural state is maintained. Yoga is what you do to transcend it and get back to the origin. So it's very important that Srimad Bhagavad Gita class is one where we talk about what is happening. In Yoga Vidya, you talk about regression. You talk about how you overcome it and get back to the source. So both these two things have to go hand in hand. Understanding what is going on, why it happens, and then knowing practicing how to get back to the origin. Which is why in yoga we say you have only three things to do: sadhana, sadhana, sadhana. Only practice. 99% perspiration, 1% inspiration. Okay. So this is who a sthithaprajñā should be. And this is where we have to all aspire to be. That is where we keep our expectations under control, accept the outcome without excessive happiness or sadness. So, would you think it would be possible to practice this during the week? Hello? This is the
Can I
Sir, maybe
share something that I
we'll
experienced during
Yes,
the
ma'am.
yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So when Lalita ma'am was chanting, I was trying to go into that zone of space. Like you said, space is listening. So I was just little bit trying to go there, and I felt quite nice.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So that's what I'm saying. So the one of the things is, if you remember, we had that carrot experiment. Now, if you will see, the carrot has got you have a touch. So when you look at the cutting, you hear the sound, you see the sight. So the cutting, if you will see, is actually a thermodynamic action. There is energy being expended to cut, but you have to cut without anger. So to cut without anger or desire is one where you are neutral. So now you see how everything begins to integrate, and that is what yoga is.
Very beautiful.
It's
And also
difficult, please
your
do.
explanation of this offering the prasad to God, which made me realize why we seldom complain about any prasadam that we receive at any puja or temple. But the food at
Correct.
home, we always find fault.
Because you
Yeah.
don't first make it a naivedyam.
Yes.
That is a very important thing. If you were to say, before we eat today, we will make it a naivedyam. It is a naivedyam. We are not the consumers. We are
Mm.
eating a prasadam. The minute it becomes a prasadam, you will never complain.
Very nice.
Okay. Now, anybody else? Come on. Lata madam, you've been very quiet today.
Sir, I have no questions. It's been an amazing session, honestly. A lot of learning. Thank you.
Okay. This is, you're being very easy on everybody and yourself.
No, sir, it's the truth. Actually, I was just thinking, introspecting, and I was thinking to myself that I should do more of this, listen more and do away with all the preconceived, a whole lot of ideas which I've already set in. I need to do away with it. I mean, just listen patiently for a while and really absorb and understand this new perspective. And then at the end of it all, I mean, maybe after about 2 months, if I still have any doubts, I'll come back to you.
No, it's very interesting that you should say this. 90% of the time, we don't need to react. For example, suppose I think you're a chartered accountant, right? So you
Yes, sir.
see, uh, data, you see numbers. You don't necessarily have to react to the numbers. You can actually go into a query mode and ask for more information and more information and more information. The minute that information starts coming in, you are actually, what you're doing is you're allowing the dirt in the water to settle down, because as more information comes, you the anger, the attachment, all of that. How can this guy be such an idiot? Believe me, that is a very big problem I have. I assume the other person knows, and when the other person doesn't respond, I get very angry, because I expect the other person to be to be knowledgeable in the subject, and that is something that is a problem. No. So I used to be an engineer of automobiles. So I would go and go into a workshop, and I would be asking the mechanic, "Ye kiya kya? Have you finished this? Have you finished this?" And if the fellow said, I'm having a problem, I would get angry. Why? Because I expected the mechanic to know. No, that's not the right way to do it. Right? The right way to do it is to actually be able to engage and to get a little get to a point where you are not, first of all, emotionally attached to the outcome. Number two, a very important part is, as you rightly I mean, you were talking in terms of personal experience, but I'm saying, daily basis, at home, at office, at other things, this is something you can implement, isn't it? Lata madam.
Sorry, sir. I had muted. Yes. I no. I understand. I understand what you're saying, and yeah, I agree that one needs to be just patient and sometimes just deep dive, and a lot of the anxieties and all go away when you deep dive.
Let it go. Just allow it to be. Let it be. That's something that many of us don't really accept, isn't it? Because for us, it becomes, if you let it go, that means that you're not claiming ownership. That ownership thing becomes so important for us, isn't it?
Yes, sir. I mean, you're right. I mean, to just give an example from my work perspective. For example, we'll get a notice from the GST authority saying that you have not paid your tax and it's not reconciling, and they'll give a big figure. You have to pay, say, 20-25 lakhs by way of fines and non-payment and all that. And then the first time you see the notice, it's like virtually your heart jumps out of your mouth. So it's
Exactly.
like a big shock, and you are so agitated and all of that. And slowly you will go through the notice, read it properly, and then realize that a lot of the things everything they've said is complete bunkum, and you have enough data to prove them otherwise. And then it's so settling. But that first few minutes, when you see it, it's like you're in such a state of tension, and so it's just important to cool down.
So that is true for all of us. In all, the child will come, there'll be one aberration somewhere, and then first thing is, oh, what happened? You think that the whole earth has fallen down. And then after some time, after the child stops crying and things like that next day morning everything is normal. So if you can stop that reaction and stay calm and take it as it goes, you're in a slightly better frame of mind, right? You live your life becomes far more easy to live.
True, sir. True. Yes.
Yes, Jayashree madam.
I was just listening to your bit about how if you're going in the bus, you want to see what's happening, that need to know, and that kind of does away with the fear. So now I would like to understand, what is the difference between fear and caution?
Fear and caution,
Yeah.
same thing. There is no difference except for the degree.
Okay.
There is no difference.
Because caution is something we need to exercise sometimes in life, right?
Well, one of the rules which I have for practicing asana is, with caution, be bold. That means the fundamental difference is, the caution is the thing beyond which you do not push. Fear is probably the lack of even wanting to push. So yes, I agree with you that there is a difference. Caution is where you're like this has to be done, and you're pushing to a point where you're pushing the envelope to a point where your level of comfort, you're just going beyond the point of comfort. Fear is where you're afraid to even push that envelope.
No, sometimes foolish caution can turn out to be foolish as well also, right?
Yes.
You can land yourself in trouble, right?
Yes, you can become. No, caution can be where you stop yourself from doing what you ought to do.
No,
So
supposing you don't
also
exercise caution, and that time, then you got to have that wisdom to discern what is safe, what isn't, right?
Let me put it this way. Fear is tamasic, caution is rajasic.
Okay.
So fear is where you are going inward and you're stopping yourself from going out. In caution, you're going out, but you're not going out fully.
Beautiful, very nice. Nice.
So that's how I would categorize it. Sir, Ramon sir.
Yeah. Thank you.
I thought fear is a feeling and caution is a response.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to say the same thing.
And
fear.
Response. How you respond to it with caution, without caution. Fear is a feeling.
Correct.
Isn't it?
So fear is a feeling of the loss of identity, the fear of loss of identity.
Okay.
That if I do something, my self-worth will be damaged.
Caution is a response.
No, sir. So fear will drive you inward and you will not act. Whereas in caution, you will act. So it's the same thing that you're saying. I'm not saying anything different, except that I'm going back into the definition from first principles of identity.
Okay.
I'm not changing what you're saying. You're saying the same thing. We are both saying the same thing. You're saying it's a response control. Fear is a
experience.
Is an emotion.
It
is an emotion. Emotion is essentially defined by the identity being under pressure.
Okay.
So I'm not changing what you're saying. It's just that I'm using different words which are more yoga based and our civilizational based. That's all. Lalita madam, you want to say something?
Yeah, something similar to what Ram sir said, that fear perhaps looks more like a reaction in most cases, many cases, and this caution is more of a response, you know. And in another, putting it in a little different way, fear could be looked at the same emotion with the negative connotation, while caution is with the same thing with more of a positive connotation. But both have, anything has to be within limits. Like it is very important, like earlier it was mentioned that being overcautious is also not a wise thing. So
But Lalita madam,
that balance is required. Yes. Yeah,
but
please.
Lalita madam, there's one thing about fear which you might have noticed. Fear is like a ghost. You cannot control it until you overcome it. You can only overcome it. Caution, that way, very often you don't need to overcome it or control it, because it is essentially one that you can see what you are stopping yourself from doing. But fear has no empirical uh, control. It's like a what we call a booth, a ghost, and it can overwhelm you. Whereas caution will not overwhelm you. Caution is you just stop yourself from doing it. I'm very grateful to Jayashree madam for raising this question, because
Yeah,
it
it's a
made me
beautiful
think also.
question. Yes.
Yeah, it's made me
Very
think also.
practical.
It's yeah, very practical question. Okay, now Tushar sir, do you have any anything, any inputs? Yes, madam. Tushar sir, are you there? Is Tushar there? Okay, looks like maybe he's not there. Okay, are there? Okay, now time for feedback. Any feedback from all of you all?
I like
Personally, I
the
enjoyed today.
beginning, this, what you mentioned about the setting, how it must have, you know, at that time of the war, Mahabharat war.
Yes, yes.
That was, I mean, I had never looked at it from that angle earlier. So that was a very different perspective, you know. And what we learned also, you know, like the copper age and all, we somehow don't bring it to what we to our what should we say, to these aspects also.
Yes,
So
yes.
that was very interesting, and I loved the explanation you gave just a little while back on fear and caution, the tamasic and the rajasic. That was also a very, I like that point very, very much. And I thought it has been a very interesting session, and all sessions are. But every time when we are in a session, we think, oh, this is a very good session, like, you know. And
Afterwards you think I wasted my time.
pardon?
Afterwards you think, Arey, yeah, this is it was not as good as I thought it was.
No. That
No,
doesn't
I'm just
happen like
joking,
that.
madam. I'm just joking.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful to you for bringing up these 2 points, because I too I wasn't going to talk about the cooperage and things like that, but then I just thought I'll share it with you all, because
No,
we
it
forget.
was important. I think it's important to see and to bring in what all we know, you know, at different times, what we have heard or what, to bring it all and join it all up. It's very interesting. It somehow I found it very interesting.
Yeah, you'll never see Mahabharata in the same way anymore. For
Yes,
Mahabharata will
yes,
become very different. The way
yeah,
they might have, what clothes they might have worn, what they might have eaten, how they would have lived. Now
Yeah.
everything will become very different, in that sense of the term. And it's important because
Yes.
we take so much for granted. We don't look at the scientific principles of what happened 5,000 years, 5,100 years ago, how they might have lived. When you think
Yeah.
about that, they would have all only walked. How many people could have had horses? They would all
Yeah.
walk. So you
Mm.
see the whole thing changes. That is when you then when you align that with ashrama, brahmacharya ashrama, grahastha ashrama, vanaprastha ashrama, and sannyasa ashrama, then whole thing, the whole socio-economic aspect begins to form into something very different from what you can imagine.
Yeah. It
Jayashree
becomes
madam,
more alive. Yeah, Jayashree,
yes,
wanted to also tell you, very nicely chanted. Liked it very much.
Thank you so much.
yes, madam, you had raised your hand.
So, thank you for starting the process of erasing the TV serial Mahabharat picture from my head. That's completely gone. And I literally got transported to a very different battlefield. You know, it was so picturesque, so vividly you explained everything. It was so nice. And I think it's very important that kids must be made to uh, we should impart the truth to kids and not this, you know, all this with all the frills and everything. I think kids need to be made aware of the truth of our civilization and not all this what is shown on TV. It is so important because see, it has
Exactly.
taken us so long. We've been, I will talk for myself. I've been living in that B.R. Chopra Mahabharat all this while. So now, you know, like this is so nice to know with what the bows were made, the sinews, then the different weapons that were used. This is all so fascinating. Thank you so much for investing so much of your time and effort to help us all understand this, to create this awareness. It's really nice.
No,
Thank you
I'm
so
really
much.
And
grateful. Yes.
and to see things from different levels and get different glimpses in those ancient times, it is very nice. Somehow suddenly, though it is so ancient, somehow it's come closer also, sort of,
Yes.
it is very
It's very
funny,
important
but somehow
because
it yeah.
we don't realize that our ancestors lived in a particular way, and in order to understand dharma today, we must try and understand how they lived it then. The Rigvedic time, the Yajurvedic time. Why did Yajurveda happen? What was Rigveda? If you really see that, and maybe someday we will discuss that also, it's
Yeah,
very
please,
different
please,
from what
please.
what
I
we
wish
were.
you could tell now, but it's getting late, I suppose. But please
Yes.
tell that next time at least. We would.
No, 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 no. That is that. That is a totally different animal altogether. If we go and grapple with that, then we will forget everything else. Then we'll get into Aryan invasion theory and all that. Then that becomes a completely different
No,
thing.
no. I meant Yajurveda and Rigveda you mentioned. I meant
Yeah,
meaning
because
that.
but then Rig Veda is directly related to where do the Aryans come from? Are they from within or from outside? So that is a very because there's a lot of material in Arya in Rig Veda. If you will, no, I'm not getting there. Don't get me started on that part. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Rammohan sir.
I was just remembering that a few months back when you came, you asked my granddaughter the same thing
Hmm,
about Mahabharata, were there horses or something. And then she
hmm,
didn't know. I mean, then afterwards she looked into it. She was so interested. The way once you asked that question, she thought yes. Then she went into some net and all that. She was researching for some time on
hmm,
that topic. So that
hmm.
set the thinking going on. I mean,
Yeah, actually, we need to encourage our children. Ask these children the question: do you think there was cavalry during the Mahabharata war?
this is the question you asked
Hmm.
to my, my granddaughter. Yes.
And you will realize it is not possible because the horse was domesticated in 7000 BC. Wheat was domesticated in 8000 BC. Rice was domesticated in 6500 BC. That means civilization actually happened very much just before the war. about 2000 years before the war. The water buffalo was domesticated in around 6000, 7000 BC. The chariot was invented only in 4000 BC. After the chariot was invented, the war systems began to get invented. What is the war system? What was the basis of the war system of the Aryas? The Gotra. That is how the Gotra becomes so significant. What is Gotra? Gotra means collection of cows. So a family would have a collection of cows, and the head of the family would give his Gotra name to the would then the whole thing would be known by that particular this, and then they would get subsumed, they would fight with each other, and then some Gotras would survive, some Gotras would go. And that is how the Gotra system came into existence. It is all the Y chromosome of the whole system. Now that, then when we go into the various samskaras, the Upanayana samskara, the Vivaha samskara, and the other samskaras, you realize how the whole system evolved into something that was very cohesive. So this is something that we can discuss at a later date, and it is truly a fascinating subject. Thank you very much. I think I've already taken a lot of your time. Thank you very much, and I think Lata Madam has rejoined. Lata Madam, do you have any final comments? How do you have? Did you enjoy the class?
I unfortunately missed about 10 minutes where I had to attend that call, but so I missed a little, but I'm looking forward to the recording so I can just hear out the whole session again.
No. I'm saying the rest of the class. After that we were discussing with it was feedback. So, what is your feedback on the class generally?
So fabulous. I concur with Ladita. I hope, because the way you started it off, visualize the whole war then and all of that, that there were no horses. I mean, you really, I mean, I didn't even think of the Mahabharata war without horses. It always, a war always, you visualize the horses and elephants and all of that. And it was so surprising when you said that. I mean, it was thought provoking. I will not say surprising, but we really did. It was very eye opening, sir, the way you started the class, and the Bhagavad Gita recital was very nice. The bhajan class was very nice. I think it's been a very interesting session, sir. Thank you to all of you.
Yeah. Now remember this. You are also going to come on the mat. Okay. So better start preparing.
Sure, sir. Yes.
Okay.
But one thought is coming up repeatedly. Maybe there is what has been fed to us about the dates regarding when things happened, the ancient history. Now, I'm not talking about only Indian, Bharatiya, but general other this. Maybe there is some error because so it somehow I still feel that cavalry was there. All those things, perhaps the dates that we know as of now would get changed once more in data comes and proofs come sort
So
of.
the reason why the cavalry part, the horse is not is reasonably certain, is because you see the bit. You have to put a bit in the horse's mouth to control it. So until they knew, the horse was not domesticated until 4000 BC.
No, but my point is that 4000 BC or those dates that we have been given, that itself may be erroneous.
The issue here is very simple. The domestication means what? The domestication means making that particular animal listen to what you have to say. It doesn't, a wild animal, you cannot make it listen to you. In the first place, the human being themselves were first hunter gatherers. That means we as human beings first used to move from place to place because we did not have the concept of farming. We did not understand the concept of using grains. All of that happened very slowly over time. And if it happened in one corner of the world, it would take at least 100 years before about 200 square kilometers of people got to understand how to do it. And that would also be trial and error. Can you imagine how many generations of people would have to uh, uh, understand that the seed can be used to make vegetation? Nobody would know, na, until somebody experimented and found out. See,
Yeah.
what is happening today? You have come to a point in your evolution where you're using artificial intelligence. It's a very different state of existence. There you're
Yeah.
talking about a person who would be afraid to leave a water body because he knows that if he leaves the water body, he's going to die. He would he would take his water. He had no way of storing water, so he would use different primitive things to store water, and he would stay away from the water body because carnivorous animals would come to the water body, and he had no way of protecting himself. So fire was the first protection. He would have large fires so that he would not have to die. So it is not as simple as that, Lalita madam. Um,
Ye-
so